Hey guys, it's Katie. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to a new recent reads reading wrap up kind of video. What do you think of my balloons? Originally I was going to film this video in front of that wall, so if you haven't stayed caught up on my vlogs you should go check them out because I've got a whole decorated wall over there. But I moved the balloons over here for today's video even though I'm kind of blocking them with my head. And it took me a hot second to figure out which way I needed to hang them for them to not be backwards on camera. So if they are backwards after all, I'm just gonna give up. But yeah, this video is part of my release week content for the Anti-Virginity Pact, which is coming out June 16th. I'll have all the links down below in the description. It's my novel, if you didn't know. I'm very, very excited for it to be out, finally. And so for today's video, I thought we would talk about some books that I've read recently. I've decided to try a new style for my monthly reading wrap-ups, where I'll just make a recent reads video every 5 books. I feel like 5 is a decent number of books to talk about in one video, instead of doing it monthly, because for whatever reason, I got so unnecessarily stressed out by monthly wrap-ups because I would always have some kind of gray area. I would start a book at the end of the month and finish it the first day of the next month. So I was like, which month do I count this on? And then I was hyper aware of how many books I was reading in a month, and I just don't want to put that kind of pressure on my reading life anymore. So we're just gonna make these videos every 5 books. I want to see if I like this style. So as you probably saw from the thumbnail, the 5 books that we're gonna be talking about today are The Truth About Keeping Secrets by Savannah Brown, Be Not Far From Me by Medea McGinnis, Home Before Dark by Riley Sager, With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo, and The Guy on the Right by Kate Stewart. In case you're more interested in hearing about one of these books than the other, I'll put timestamps down below in the description so you can jump around to the different reviews if you would like. And before we get started, thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. Skillshare is an awesome company that I've been working with for about a year now. They're an online learning community with a very wide variety of different classes to help you brush up on a skill that you already have or to learn something brand new, which is my new focus. If you stayed caught up on my vlogs, you know I've been trying out some new hobbies. For one thing, I started a reading bullet journal. So I've been very interested in trying out more artistic things because that's an area that I've never really allowed myself to experiment with in the past because I just kind of was afraid that I wouldn't be any good at it. So Skillshare has a ton of bullet journaling, hand lettering, design kind of classes, and they also have a bunch of graphic design classes, which I'm also interested in because I'm trying to improve my thumbnails and things like that. In particular, the class that I'm looking at is a Procreate for beginners class. Procreate is something that I've been really interested in trying, but I've actually gone in there before and just felt immediately overwhelmed. I was I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea how to work this. So I found this beginner class and I thought this would be good to help if I want to use it for my thumbnails and stuff, but also if I just want to create things in there, maybe print them out and put them in my journal. I don't really know, but I thought it would be fun to learn something new. And Skillshare I feel is a really great way to do that. I've enjoyed all of the classes that I've tried in the past. With a premium membership, you have unlimited access to their tens of thousands of different classes if you want to try a bunch of different new things. So if you're interested in trying them out, make sure you use my link down below in the description because that will get you 2 months for free of their premium membership. And then after that, memberships are super affordable. It's less than $10 per month. So without further ado, let's get straight into the video. One thing that I've really enjoyed about my reading journal actually is I made this spread for all of the books that I've read in 2020. I highly recommend making something like this, even if it's not in a journal, just on a piece of paper, because this has been so highly motivating for me. I write the title of a book when I start reading it and then I color it in when I'm done, and that's so motivating to me. I've been in such a reading slump and now I'm so excited to finish books because it's so satisfying to color them in, and then I have all of these books drawn, so now I'm getting competitive with myself and I was I want to fill them all in before the end of the year. So this has been weirdly very motivating for me and very fun. And then the different colors are different kinds of books for physical books, ebooks, audiobooks, and then books that I read for my editorial clients. Let's start with The Truth About Keeping Secrets by Savannah Brown. This was our book club pick for May. I run a book club over on my Patreon page. I'll have a link down below if you want to join us for next month. We buddy read a book every month, and then I post a spoilery reading vlog at the end of the month. So The Truth About Keeping Secrets was our May pick, and this is a young adult contemporary. It's kind of marketed like a thriller mystery, but that's something I'm going to talk about in here. Definitely go in with the expectation that this is more of a character-driven contemporary. So our main character's name is Sydney, and her dad was the only therapist in their small town, and then he mysteriously dies. And so this book is really about Sydney kind of coming to terms with that and her struggling with her grief to the point where she is kind of thinking maybe someone killed her dad because he knew too much because he was the only therapist in town. So that's kind of where the little mystery aspect comes in, is she's trying to figure out if someone actually murdered her father, and then also just her grappling with her grief and also becoming closer with a girl at school named June. This book also has LGBTQ plus representation in it if you're looking for books like that for Pride Month. And I did really enjoy this one. I think it definitely helped that I read reviews ahead of time, so I knew to expect this to mostly be focused on grief and to be very character driven, because if I went in with the expectation that this was going to be like a fast-paced thriller, that would not have gone well. It was very slow paced, not in a like that's a flaw of the book way, but it was just very character driven, very focused on Sydney and June's budding friendship, maybe something more. And personally, I found the grief portrayal in here to be very realistic. It's hard to talk about what I didn't like about the book without spoiling the end, so all I'm gonna say is the direction that the book took, I wished it had gone a different way. I kind of got a feeling about halfway through the book that that was the way it was gonna go, and I was like, oh no, please don't. And not because it's a bad plot line, I guess I'm just personally tired of seeing plot lines like that in books. I guess I just have read a lot of them lately, and just like personal preference wise, I wish it had gone a different way. But that aside, I think it was done really well. So yeah, if you're going into this book expecting it to be like a fast-paced mystery thriller, you get that vibe for about the last 10% of the book. The rest of it is slow build contemporary. So this is not to say don't read this book or I didn't like this book. I did like this book. I don't know, the best word to describe this book for me would be quiet. So next, let's talk about The Guy on the Right by Kate Stewart. This is a new adult romance. It's set in college and we're following our main character Theo. I believe he's 21 when the book starts, and he is a virgin. He was waiting for his girlfriend who he was with all throughout high school, and then she broke his heart because after he had been waiting for her all this time, she went and slept with some random guy at a party one night. So now Theo is in college and kind of struggling to be taken seriously as like a romantic prospect among the women. He feels like he's always treated like a teddy bear. This is made especially clear because his roommate is like the ultimate playboy. He has a different girl every night, and poor Theo is left there like making breakfast for all of the different girls every day. And then one day he meets Lainey. I think you'll like this if you really like Friends to Lovers. It wasn't my favorite. I was listening to the audiobook and I think that really played into why I didn't enjoy this book more. So if you're gonna read it, I really recommend not listening to the audiobook. The voices were not my favorite and it made it a little bit difficult to get through. The middle section I found kind of slow. It took me a while to finish this book. It definitely has its strengths. I can see why a lot of people enjoyed this book. It just was not a favorite for me. I would say it's average, like a 3-star kind of read for me. Personally, I wasn't the biggest fan of our main character Theo. He just kind of got on my nerves because I got sort of the male equivalent of not like other girls vibes from him. Like, I'm not like other guys. I'm a nice guy. Like that kind of vibe, which made me roll my eyes. Lainey, his love interest in this book, I really like. She's very spunky, very sassy. Like she has the kind of personality of like someone I would want to be friends with, so she was really fun. But I did find the book to be kind of cheesy. They're running this social media account together, so there's all of these hashtags in the book, which for whatever reason just like really annoyed me. And it was very over dramatic, which for whatever reason I feel like I can buy into more in like a young adult book set in high school, because I feel like teenagers are more like their emotions are more like amplified and they can be like super dramatic. But when you're like 21, 22, I mean, I think you'll definitely still have a hint of that, but it still felt like so overly dramatic. I can't give you specifics without like spoiling things that happen in the book, but if you read this book you'll probably know exactly what I'm talking about. So yeah, this one was not a favorite. I'm so glad I read it. I still enjoyed it, but not one that's gonna stick with me. I purposefully put those two first because the next three I'm very excited about. I loved these next three. So let's start with Be Not Far From Me by Mindy McGinnis. This is a young adult survival story set in the Smoky Mountains, and if you are at all familiar with my channel, you know I love Mindy McGinnis. Her novel, The Female of the Species, is one of my all-time favorite books, and I've been meaning to read this one for a really long time, and it's a super short book. It was like a 5-hour-long audiobook, so I picked this up when I was kind of coming out of The Guy on the Right, so I was kind of in a reading slump, and I was thinking, you know, a 5-hour audiobook, super short, will help me get back into reading. And that it did. I finished it in like a day. So this book follows our main character Ashley, and basically she's out in the middle of the woods with all of her friends. They're having a party and she catches her boyfriend cheating on her. So she runs off in a drunken rage and basically falls into a ravine and injures herself very, very severely. And then her friends think she went home, so they leave her behind, and now she's stranded in the middle of the woods, barely able to walk. No pack, no supplies. I would highly recommend this book if you, one, like survival stories, or two, know that you like Mindy McGinnis's books, or 3 if you just want something like super short and easy to fly through. Just be aware if you don't like really graphic descriptions of injuries, or if you're kind of squeamish, you might have some issues with this book, especially if you're listening to the audiobook, because it was hard to listen to at some times. But I know that I'm like highly sensitive to that kind of stuff. I'm very like squeamish about really graphic descriptions of injuries, so it might not bother some other people, but it's a little gnarly at places. But honestly, I loved reading this book. I loved our main character, Ashley. Honestly, I had so much respect for her. It really got me thinking, like, if I was in the same situation, would I be able to do the things that she does? Because frankly, I'd like to believe I would be able to like survive and stuff. I don't think I could. I think I would have died. So yeah, I love her books. This isn't my favorite of hers, but still definitely worth the read. So we've got 2 more left. I guess we'll save my most recent book for last. So the next one we have was With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. I loved this book. Like, I adored this book. I listened to the audiobook, would highly recommend reading it that way because the author narrates it herself, and I always just love that touch with audiobooks. And also just Elizabeth Acevedo should narrate every audiobook ever from now on because she is so good at it. So this book is about Imoni. She is a single mother. She's also a senior in high school, and her parents are kind of out of the picture, so she's basically been raised by her grandmother, and it's YA contemporary, if I didn't already say that, if that wasn't already obvious. So basically she's really into cooking, and so she wants to take this extra elective, which is brand new at her school, for a culinary arts class that goes to Spain at the end of the year as a class trip. And so basically the book is about her trying to juggle, you know, taking care of her daughter. She works, she's trying to fundraise to be able to afford this trip to Spain. She's, you know, dealing with her senior year of high school, and then also her dad is kind of like in and out of the picture, and her navigating this life with her grandma because she feels really bad for her grandma because her grandma had to raise her son, and then she basically raised her, and now she's raising her daughter. So it's just like a very complicated family dynamic, and I thought basically everything about this book was really well done. Like, I'm struggling to think of anything I didn't like about this book. I'm not someone who's good at cooking whatsoever, so I loved the descriptions of like how just like instinctual it is for her. Like, it's a completely different world for me, so like listening to her be like, oh yeah, I think it just needs this and this and this and this and this, and even like her teacher's like, oh my god, what did you do? Like, this is so good. So yeah, this was really uplifting and heartwarming, and I really enjoyed it. I flew through this one as well. I think I read it in a day. This one also has a cute like friends maybe relationship in here, which I thought was adorable. I was really into it. I read her novel The Poet X back in 2018, loved it. Obviously I love this one, so now I really need to get my hands on her new one, Clap When You Land, because obviously I'm gonna love that one too. That one just came out in May. Cannot recommend this one enough. And then our final book to talk about in this video is one of my new favorites. Definitely one of my favorites that I've read so far this year. Was Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. This was my most anticipated book of the year, and it did not disappoint at all. It actually had a moment in there about like 3/4 of the way through, which I've noticed is a trend with his books, where it like seems like it's wrapping up, and I had this moment of disappointment, like, oh, this is it? Like, I was expecting more from this ending. This is just kind of okay. I'm kind of disappointed to like 2 pages later, I'm gonna have nightmares. So good. I guess I should tell you what the book is about. So Home Before Dark follows our main character Maggie, and I love the way it was written and how the author was more willing to experiment with the format of the book this time around, because we're switching off between present day Maggie, she's an adult, I think she's in her mid-20s, and then her father wrote this book about what happened to their family when she was 5 years old. So we're switching off between the book that her father wrote and what's happening to her now. And so basically when she was 5 years old, they lived in this house for 20 days and they left in the middle of the night and never went back. And the book that her father wrote, I think, was called House of Terrors, about how the house was haunted and that's why they left. And this book absolutely blew up. It made her family rich, and it's followed Maggie her entire life because everyone recognizes her from the book. And Maggie resents it and hates it so much, how much it's affected her life, especially because to her, the book is all lies. She doesn't believe any of this happened. She thinks her father made it all up because he published it as non-fiction. And she's like, this is all bullshit. Like, this did not happen. And so now that she's 25, after her father passes away, she goes back to this house to try and get some answers because she can't remember anything that happened during the time that they were there, and she's like read the book, so now like what she's read, she can't distinguish between what are her memories and what are things that she's read in the book, you know? And I loved this book. If you liked The Haunting of Hill House, I found this to be very similar, which is why I liked it so much. I love The Haunting of Hill House. I will say it's a little slow in parts for a thriller, but I wouldn't do anything differently. Like, I don't think there was anything to change. It was just more of like it needed that build up. It needed to build that creepy atmosphere. Like, it felt like I was watching a horror movie. Like, God, I hope they make a movie of this. I would love to watch this. So it was very creepy and very atmospheric and very visual. And then there were like chunks of it that ended up being like super fast paced, but then in between you kind of just like going with the creepy vibe, if that makes sense. I actually found our main character, Maggie, to be like fairly unlikable, but I liked that she was unlikable. Like, I really enjoyed reading from her perspective, and I could completely like sympathize and understand with her, because I can't imagine growing up your entire life and her parents would just like outwardly lie to her face, and she knew they were doing it. And she was like, well, you just tell me the truth, and they're basically like, no. Like, they admitted basically that we're lying to you, but we're not going to tell you the truth. Her entire life, like even when she's an adult. So yeah, this was really fun. I really, really loved the ending for this. I feel like this is going to be another one of those endings, which I feel like is the case for the majority of the thrillers, where I love the ending. It's a hit or miss with people, so I feel like you're either going to love or you're going to hate the ending. I loved the ending so much. I really, really enjoyed my experience with this book. It was a good time. Definitely one of my favorites that I've read this year, if not my favorite so far. It was so good. So yeah, those are the last 5 books that I've read. I would love to hear down below in the comments if you've read any of these and what you thought of them. Don't forget my novel, The Anti-Virginity Pact, is coming out June 16th. All of the links will be down below in the description. I also announced that my second poetry collection, Poems for the End of the World, is now up for pre-order. You can add it on Goodreads, so that's very exciting. I guess, you know, all of the usual plugs here. You can subscribe to my mailing list newsletter on my website. I'll have that link down below. Join me on Patreon if you want to. Subscribe to my vlog channel. Follow me on Instagram. There's a bunch of stuff in the description if you're interested. And I'll link all of the books that I talked about today down below as well. That's gonna be it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're all doing well, and I will just see you guys in another video very, very soon. Bye.
So hit me. So hit me. So hit me. First a confession. With you I feel a connection. With